What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Wacky Worm Exposed. I'm gonna expose it. I'm gonna tell you guys why this setup is so effective in so many places, any time of the year, especially right now in the fall when the bite is extremely tough. We just came off of 3 very tough events on the Bassmaster Elite Series. We went to Guntersville, went straight to Santee Cooper in South Carolina, and then went straight there to Lake Chickamauga, and extremely tough. And this is when this dude right here shines. Didn't have a great finish at Guntersville, but did catch one of the couple biggest fish in that tournament. Top 10 at Santee Cooper, great tournament. Wasn't getting a lot of bites, but they were all on this dude. And again, one of the top 3 biggest fish caught in that tournament. And the same thing at Chickamauga, you know. Man, ups and downs, highs and lows, but caught one of the 3 biggest fish in that tournament. And I'm going to tell you guys why this wacky worm is so effective. It's all good when they eat it. It's all good when you catch a fish on it, but answering the question why is incredibly important, especially in the future, going on to future events, future times on the water, of why you want to have something like this in your arsenal. And this is absolutely something that I never fish an event without on my front deck, because the wacky worm, a weightless wacky worm, especially this Missile Baits 48, will catch them, mark my word, when nothing else will. And there's several different reasons for that. First off, the bait. You guys seen me on Bass Live for a couple of those events, throwing this little dude right here. That right there, you probably all are aware, or that is that Missile Baits 48. Why is a Missile Baits 48 so effective and so different than your typical 5-inch Senko? Number one, it's a 48 for a reason. It's 4.8 inches long. It's a little bit shorter. If you notice, either side of it is a little fatter than the middle. Why is that important? Because when that bait falls, what those fatter ends do is it enhances the wobble as it goes down. They're super salt impregnated, has a really good fall to it. It is very different than what you're used to throwing on a weightless wacky worm with just your typical Senko. This 48 is different, and it will catch fish when nothing else will. Mark my word for it. Proof's in the pudding. But your setup, every single component to this setup is absolutely key to make sure that you're gonna have the best results on a wacky worm. Now, let's start with the rod. You guys know Legend Extreme. This is a 7-foot medium action with a fast tip. Now this rod has a lot of backbone to it. It's extremely strong. It's probably a little stiffer than what you're probably used to throwing, but I always say that getting a hook in a fish is the #1 goal in anything that you do. I like a stiff rod. This Legend Extreme is the most sensitive rod on the market, and it is incredibly strong, incredibly tough, and I know I'm gonna get a hook in the fish. So that's the rod. So let's go to the line. As you can see, the green on my reel right here, that is a high vis lime green line, Seagar Smackdown 15-pound braid, and I put it to in this situation, I was throwing a 10-pound fluorocarbon leader, Alberto knot to tie the two together, and then of course the hook. This is another incredibly important tool to this is this Gamakatsu right here. This is a size 1 Gamakatsu with the titanium weed guard. Now, a lot of the fish that I were catching in Santee Cooper were around cypress trees. If you guys know, cypress trees has a gnarly root ball on it, a lot of cypress needs. So if I did not have this titanium weed guard on it right here, I would stay hung up. I would always prefer to fish it without a weed guard, but this titanium weed guard that Gamakatsu has, this G Finesse, is very, very limber, and it does not impede the hookup ratio with a fish. This thing right here, guys, I know guys who are not affiliated with Gamakatsu, who are affiliated with other hook companies that use this hook in their wacky setup. There is 100% truth there. I'm not going to name any names, but there are a lot of guys that fish this hook because rarely do I lose a fish or does a fish come unbuttoned on this hook right here. Extremely important right there. Size, this is a size 1. I also was throwing a lot of the size 2 as well, depending on the situation. But all of these incredibly important to your setup on weightless wacky worm fishing. Now, there is one component to this that you're not seeing right now, and that is patience. Guys, when you are throwing this Missile Baits 48 wacky and weightless like I was doing at Santee Cooper, patience is everything. Because I was fishing trees in 3 foot and less. And if you could imagine a weightless wacky worm on this Missile Baits 48 on a tree that's in just 3 foot of water, guys, it takes probably 12 to 15 seconds for this bait to wobble slowly and get all the way to the bottom of the tree. 99% of the time, my bites were coming right before it hit the bottom. So I had to take 12 to 15 seconds just letting that bait sit there and letting that bait sit there and letting that bait just sit there. And it would slowly fall and a fish would grab it right before it hit the bottom. Now, the situation. High bluebird skies, bright sunny days, hardly any wind. Those fish would position underneath cover and trees in the shade. Now, days that I had cloudy, like at day 3 at Santee Cooper, we had a lot of clouds and a lot of wind, and those fish would roam. I only got 2 bites that day. Now, they were 2 of the right ones, but I only got 2 bites that day. I don't know if that fish is gonna be behind the tree, in front of the tree, to the left, to the right. When the sun's up high, I can more of target where those fish are gonna be. I know they're gonna be hidden underneath the shade, so I can be more efficient with my cast. I knew where those fish were gonna be at that point. When it clouds up, it's kind of a crapshoot. I mean, you don't know where he's gonna be. They kind of roam around. So the conditions, I love high bright skies, sun up high, that way those fish position underneath the shade, and you can better feel for where they're gonna be at. Now I use this setup too at Guntersville as well, but they were deeper, scattered grass, and they would have maybe a log out there in the middle of a pocket in the scattered grass. And I would use that. And in one of the videos that you guys saw me catching that big fish, I had a 6-pounder that day. That fish was actually in like 7 foot of water, guys. And I flicked that little wacky worm out there. And I'm telling you, that thing fell for 30 seconds. And it fell, and it fell, and it fell, and it fell, and my line jumped right before it hit the bottom, 6-pounder. That's why that high vis is very important, guys, because I'm watching that line the entire time as it falls. And when a fish hits it, the line's gonna jump and I know he's on it. High vis, you need to be able to see that line. Line watching with a wacky worm is 100% important, because if that fish grabs it and you don't know it, and by the time you take up slack on it and the fish is done run 50 feet away and you don't catch it, he's already spit it. You need to know when that fish grabs it. Line watching, extremely important. This weightless wacky worm right here, I'm telling you guys, I've told you before and you've seen me preach about this, it will catch fish when nothing else will. Now, sometimes I would use straight braid and I would just blacken in a part of the line at the end. When I'm in really shallow water, I'm talking like a foot or less. Anytime I'm over that, I put a fluorocarbon leader on, because that will increase the rate of fall of the worm. If you go to straight braid and you're trying to let it sink 3 or 4 foot, that braid floats and it's actually going to slow the fall of the worm, and it's just, you're not going to be able to be as efficient with it. So I like to put a fluorocarbon leader on, and this is a 10-pound fluorocarbon leader, a lot stronger than you guys think. It is extremely strong, rarely break it, rarely lose a fish on this setup, but every component to this setup is 100% key to make you a better wacky worm fishing. And again, something that's not listed here is patience. You got to have patience, and you have to have confidence that you're around fish, and you have to treat every piece of cover like you know there's a fish there. Very important, and you have to stick with it. If it's a tough bite, especially in the fall, this time of the year, guys, a wacky worm will catch fish when nothing else will. You can be stealthy, you can get it underneath trees. This is only a 7-foot St. Croix Legend Extreme here. It's pretty short, but I like a shorter rod, especially when I'm trying to skip that wacky worm up underneath tree branches and stuff, cypress trees, to get this bait back where you quite frankly just can't get another bait back in without making a huge splash. You can be very stealthy in this approach. So Missile Baits 48, St. Croix rods, Legend Extreme, 7 foot, medium action, fast tip, and that Gamakatsu stinger hook, that titanium weed guard is absolutely the ticket for this setup. So we're at the end of the video, and everybody's probably wondering why I have a cookie next to me. That's why this Missile Baits 48 and this Wacky worm weightless is so effective. You put it in front of a fish long enough, he's gonna eat it. Because guys, you know, us as humans, I mean, we could be full, we just finished dinner, we don't wanna eat anything else. You put a cookie in front of you long enough, you're gonna eat it. You know, it'll toy with your emotions, and that is exactly what this setup will do for you right here, especially to a fish. We're playing with their emotions, we're putting it in front of them long enough to where they just say, okay, it's there, I'm gonna eat it. That's why there's a cookie here, because guys, it sits in front of you long enough. Lesson learned. He's gonna eat it. Wacky worm exposed, guys. Put it in your arsenal. Every component to this setup is 100% key. I hope this helps. Dream big. Tight lines. See you guys later.